The trickster energy is heavy this week, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start out with that. The ancestors are coming through like intensely, like they want to get across messages to all of you. They want you to sit with them, and they're asking you to slow down because they have not only wisdom around your particular challenges right now, but they have advice about things that you haven't seen. So there's things that they see that you don't. In certain situations, there's a lot of blockage to the throat chakra, to your truth. And we also, I don't like to feed the narrative of destiny swapping, but we have another attempt at destiny swapping here. And the way that I look at this is somebody avoiding their karma, and it's coming through romance. Sagittarius moon coming through later this week, as well as, Juno in Sagittarius this week, bringing in this relationship twist, this the concept of love, this twist, and almost kind of like a parlay here, like a risky move when it comes to love or romance, as well as wealth. That is also representative in Juno. So what you need to be aware of this week, more than anything, is the energy that surrounds you, especially in the unseen, as Pisces, the sun moves into Pisces this week. So Pisces season bringing in a lot of energy surrounding the unseen, which we'll get into later. Yeah, we need to talk about that. There's a lot of anxiety there. But specifically, when it comes to love, when it comes to romance, and codependent relationships. And I want to be gentle with that because a lot of you guys are breaking these habits and patterns, but there is a lot of chaos in the current state of affairs, externally, macrocosm, right? And so that's only trickling down into the microcosms of all of our realities, which is going to bring impulsive moves, reckless actions, and it opens the door to toxic relationships when we are feeding fears and when we are feeding, the tyranny and the chaos in the macrocosm. So we do have this energy coming through. Now, let's talk about this. Let's zoom out for a second. Let's talk about limerence. A lot of you guys are developing telepathic gifts right now, which is helping you see things that you didn't previously see, but can also create a lot of overthinking, can create a lot of narratives that aren't 100% true and sometimes aren't true at all, but rather a figment of imagination. They could relate to another timeline, but not the one that you're in right now. So be mindful of that. This is really about, did you set those boundaries over the past couple of weeks when the Seven of Wands was playing out heavily in the collective? Did you work on that inner child healing when it came to your desires and your prioritization around your movements and actions? And if not, how can you slow down and see that that's most likely playing a part with what's happening right now? And you've got to remember the part that Virgo in the South Node is playing when it comes to judgment and how that affects our movements as well. The perception that we're being judged or heavily judging ourselves when it comes to how we move and how we shift and how we act and then how that plays out in how we move forward. Now, again, going back to telepathy, we have like this air of limerence coming through where there's nostalgia, there's kind of like falling back into some kind of romance or fantasy. Pisces always brings this kind of energy in if we're open to it or if we are kind of sifting through some kind of abandonment wound. Which many of us are in some extent, and once again, just because of what's happening with the current events. So we have this like inner child need and we have this pressure around, how we're going to get our needs met. And we have, with this specifically based around our fire energy, which probably was brought up around the Leo full moon, we have a Queen and a King of Wands coming through here. So some kind of match, but with it, the Devil card, and also with it, the Five of Pentacles, some kind of lack, loss, or abandonment. creating an opportunity for a chain to either reattach or form, because there's a lack of patience. But overarching this is a Queen of Wands and the Justice, and this really signifies the feminine collective as a whole, and as they've been growing over the past several decades, to be quite frank, why many of your ancestors want to come through and talk to you about this, and ways in which this is threatening and brings, this tricky energy in that wants to again gain control over it because it's afraid. But also with this, there is a masculine collective fearing being left behind due to the current events as well, because they're also not getting their needs met by the current situation. So there's changes in jobs, there's changes in living situations, there's changes in relationships, like, let's call it like it is, right? But with that, right, slowing down and being patient, again, Sagittarius coming through heavily this week, can you look at the long-term perspective? Remember, Sagittarius is that horse, the archer, with the archer on its back. And it's, bow and arrow, setting its sights on the future and making a plan that can be sustainable in the long term. But you can't make a plan in survival mode. So this is really opening the door to a quantum leap and a timeline shift that is based off of your ability to be farsighted and also to slow down and be patient. To really fall into that fire energy in the name of creative forces, creative energy, femininity, a self-expression here, which seems to be the biggest challenge considering the collective is fighting a collective, I don't know what you want to call it, a woe, a giant woe. That is very much an understatement, but you get what I mean. Which brings depression, which brings loss, which brings Five of Pentacles and holds us back in this winter time. He's on crutches too. Are we seeking something that acts as a crutch for us? Or are we taking bold steps forward? And that is the challenge. But again, you have to see this too. This Ten of Pentacles in reverse, falling on top of the Ace of Pentacles presented to the feminine collective. And again, everyone has feminine energy, but who's tapped into it right now? So this Ten of Pentacles falling on in reverse, falling on top of this Ace of Pentacles as the King of as the King of Wands comes out with the Devil card. Someone wanting to come in and intercede on an opportunity by either voicing something that is manipulative, bringing some kind of trickster energy in, some kind of manipulation, or simply playing on your emotions and your unmet desires and pulling you into a romance or the narrative of one. Is it true for you? Is it what you want? Is it an idea that really leads to a toxic outcome? Is this a repeated pattern for you? These are things to really think about and ask yourself, if there's some situations like this in hand. Now, again, because we are developing the third eye during this week, and that's really the main theme for those of you who are on either an ascension path, developing your gifts actively, or a spiritual journey, you might just have some unexpected energies that act like this but are not seen. They're disembodied. They're spirits. Be mindful of this. Tuesday, the sun moves into Pisces. We have this huge opening up and shift out of this fighting for justice, not out of it, but into a new way of looking at how we approach it. So let me rephrase that before it gets mistaken, but a new way of approaching what we've been fighting for collectively, or even within our own lives. And in looking at it through the third eye, which the gift of the third eye is oneness. And the shadow is separation. So the challenge here is, with all the separation at hand, with all of the madness at hand, can you see through this? Can you see what it is? Can you see it for what it is and why it's happening? And can you shift out of the need to try and immediately fix it or control it, and rather see the power that you hold within your own energy? This is what is going to open that third eye. This is what's going to activate. This is what's going to, expand your awareness and bring you a new level of insight and also spiritual gifts to use that empower you, that bring you, that sense of safety and security that you didn't have. And it's all in the unseen. It's all workable energy. But you have to be open to the awareness. You have to be open to the shift in perspective. So the biggest thing blocking the collective right now is the root chakra, safety. Not feeling like we have our needs met, or that they're not going to be met, or how we're going to get to the outcome that we need to ensure safety. And a lot of these things are not material things, they're ideas. So again, perspective being so key and so important. And this is really about calling judgment on the things that we feel so that we can see through the illusions, and so that we can truly come into our true authentic self and alignment with our true authentic self, and move forward with a more heart-driven way of expressing ourselves and operating. And again, this comes with acceptance of the things we can't change. The bridge of consciousness happens at the fourth chakra, which is connected to the astral plane, which connects us to the unseen. It connects us to the dead. It connects us to, other people's astral bodies and other timelines, right? So the bridge of consciousness is the pass between judgment and non-judgment. It is when we shift out of duality. It is when we come to more acceptance, and it is when we can tap into unconditional love. So really the biggest challenge this week is, how much can you detach from the things that you cannot change and come to a place of unconditional love and acceptance for what is, without decentering yourself? When you lose yourself, you fall into codependency, or you become a target of toxic manipulation and codependency, right? So you have to stay centered in yourself while also detaching from your needs in the immediate future. It's about backing up, but not backing down. That's a challenging dynamic in itself. That's a very tricky balance. So don't be hard on yourself when it comes to, how are we going to get this and how are we going to get that? But do be aware of the pressure around those narratives and, the pressure that everybody feels right now. The more that you're aware of this, and also the fact that you can't fix it, but you can bring your own flavor by getting into your higher alignment that will help in your own unique way. The more you assist, and the less that you bring frantic chaos. So whether this be about you really I can't even think about that because I can't even regulate my nervous system, or whether this be I'm really trying to work on a project to help with what's going on right now and I have no idea how to make it work. This is really saying, when you detach without decentering, you will have the best results, no matter what your desired outcome is. That is alchemy. We're too zoomed in and too close up to something due to fear. I mean, it's that simple, but it's also not that simple. So really, again, this King of Wands wants to come in and bring all kinds of wisdom and powerful, bold moves and, come off as courageous. But the underlying thing about this King of Wands is that he's been abandoned. And quite frankly, we even see this in the presidency when we've heard the man talk about, feminine energies and how we need to control them, because if you do anything wrong, if you even compliment a woman, then the woman is going to take your career away from you, completely dismissing the fact and the reality of abuse. It's just manipulation. Can you see how it's being used against you in the unseen as well? I've been called not to even speak on this, to be quite frank, because it's just so obvious how grandiose the narcissism is. But in that grandiosity is a dark sense of humor that you're being called to adapt to in order to stop feeding it. So there's that when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to the feminine collective, when it comes to transcending these challenges in the collective and in the current tyrannical madness. And any destiny swapping, for that matter. These energies will eventually tire themselves out. But the challenge is right now, everyone is getting these third eye activations, third eye awakenings. We're seeing through situations into the future. And there's almost a sense of the bearings have not quite been grasped in the new reality, in the new timeline. So give yourself some time to, grasp your bearings, rebalance yourself, realign yourself this week. That's really what this week is about. Because as we move into the end of the week, we have Saturday, the moon moving into Capricorn, bringing discipline and drive and motivation, focus. And then we have Mars stationing direct. Finally, but he will still be in Cancer, bringing in an air of emotional challenge that can intercede your attempts to move forward, if not given their due diligence, their self-care, their love. So just remember that we're still kind of teeter-tottering here astrologically when it comes to the energy that's coming in, the energy that's challenging us, and the energy that is offering an opening to a new portal and a passageway. We still have lots of bananas. I call them bananas distractions, where it's like, there's a need for them. There's sustenance there, right? And so I jokingly call bananas distractions because they feed our monkey mind, or their sustenance in some way. Like, you need to watch the news, otherwise you could just be taken under tow by a bunch of stuff that you have no idea is happening. But in watching the news, you can end up feeding a lot of distractions. So it's the same thing. It feels like there's a lot of bananas being thrown around. Which one do you eat and which one do you pass up? That's kind of the game that we're in. It does feel like we're in a video game, but again, you control this. That's alchemy. That's what I teach. So slow down and back up. And can you see how you are either creating more of a nightmare or less of a nightmare by feeding certain thoughts, certain narratives, or breaking them apart and facing the fears and the challenges and the shadows within them, taking your control back, taking your voice back, taking your inspiration back. Do you see how the energy shifts throughout my message from talking about the icky stuff and the fear that it can incite, and then talking about the alchemy and the ability to really tap into your higher self by detaching and taking your power back? Do you see the difference? So just like that, you can shift the energy. It's just all up to you and your perception. The other thing I will say here is, with this, a lot of you guys seeing into the future, be mindful of what you're seeing and be mindful of the timelines at play. Don't take anything too seriously right now, because the week ends with the Seven of Pentacles, which states that there is going to be a need for patience here. So regardless of what you do see, don't be afraid to look into the abyss, but don't get stuck there either. Be mindful to come back to the physical. Make sure you're grounding these new insights and gifts and awareness that come through your third eye, and make sure that you can bring a balance back to your consciousness, so you don't topple over. Anything else? The Ten of Pentacles, I have been receiving a lot of information, which I wrote about in my weekly forecast. Go check that out on my blog, link in my Linktree in my bio. Around a Ten of Pentacles coming in for those of you guys who do align with your truth. It does feel like there is an abundance of blessings and miracles coming through for you. It feels like shower of gifts from your ancestors, but this does require confirmation. Yeah. To clear this block in the solar plexus, clear this fear and block around control, and really work with your ancestors again to access those keys. They're dangling keys for you guys. And again, some of you guys are going to get these third eye activations regardless, but how you use them and how, much they work for you is up to the work that you do with your ancestors and with your guides. So again, slow down and listen to them. They have a lot of really, really, really great information for you. But also respect your elders, because they have a lot of wisdom that you might not. So with that is it. I also saw a hawk before I started this reading, and this is just be mindful with your anger right now. Be mindful with your anger, be mindful with your judgments, and be mindful with what you take on, because some of you guys are taking on the anger that is not yours and feeding it. Okay? So again, more on that in my energy forecast blog for this week, but tap in and get aligned with your highest self so that you can access these gifts and blessings that want to come through for you.